All right, today we're going to dive into the story of a group that didn't just climb the charts, they completely reshaped the global music industry as we know it. Yep, we are talking about BTS.
I mean, it's the question on everyone's mind, right? How did this actually happen? It's a massive achievement. And let me tell you, it wasn't some overnight success story, and it was anything but an accident. So let's get into it. The talent, the timing, the strategy that built this modern music empire.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at their origins as the Bulletproof Boy Scouts. Then, we'll trace their insane road to domination. After that, we'll meet the 7 guys behind the phenomenon. And finally, we'll look at that unprecedented pause in their career and what it means for their massive return.
Okay, let's rewind all the way to the beginning. Because to really get what BTS is all about, you have to know what their name actually means.
So their whole identity was right there from day one. Bangtan. This wasn't just a cool-sounding name, it was a mission. As J-Hope put it, it's all about protecting youth from the bullets of prejudice and high expectations. It's such a powerful idea, and it really became the bedrock for everything they did next.
You know, this timeline really shows you what an underdog story this is. They got started back in 2010 with a tiny agency, Big Hit Entertainment, that nobody had really heard of. And when they debuted in 2013, they weren't this polished pop machine. No, it was gritty hip-hop, talking about real stuff like the pressures of school. And, fun fact, RM is actually the only member left from that original 2010 lineup. By 2014, they were already thinking bigger, putting out albums in both Korean and Japanese. Now, wow, did those humble beginnings pay off? They quickly started building an absolutely mind-blowing legacy of record-breaking success.
Just look at this number, over 40 million albums sold. That's not just successful, that makes them the best-selling musical act in the entire history of South Korea. I mean, let that sink in. They've outsold every single legendary artist that came before them. It's staggering.
And check out how fast this happened. This wasn't a slow and steady climb. It was a rocket launch. In 2016, Wings was their first album to hit 1 million sales in South Korea, which was a huge deal. But just 4 years later, Map of the Soul 7 sold over 5 million. That growth curve you see, it's practically a vertical line. That kind of explosion is it's almost unheard of.
Which brings us to this little comparison, which is just wow. The only other group to get 6 #1 singles in the US this fast? The Beatles. Yeah, the Beatles. At this point, you're not just talking about a K-pop group. You're talking about a level of global domination that puts them in the same sentence as the most iconic bands of all time.
But their impact, it goes so far beyond just sales numbers. They smashed through so many barriers. They were the first Korean act to ever top the US Billboard 200 chart. They sold out Wembley Stadium in London. And then you have the other stuff. They've spoken at the United Nations 3 times. And they became the youngest people to ever receive South Korea's Order of Cultural Merit for being such incredible cultural ambassadors. So we've talked about the records, the history, the impact, but who are the 7 guys at the heart of it all? Let's actually meet the members behind the music. Okay, so every single one of them brings something essential to the table. You've got RM, the brilliant leader and rapper, who's often their voice in interviews. Then there's Jin. He's the oldest and one of the group's amazing vocalists. Suga is a lead rapper and an absolute genius producer. He also has a solo career as August D. J-Hope is their powerhouse main dancer. Jimin, another phenomenal dancer and lead vocalist, is famous for his incredible stage presence. V brings this super unique, deep, soulful voice. And finally, there's Jungkook, the golden maknae, the super talented youngest member who's the main vocalist and center of the group. Okay, so picture this. They are at the absolute peak of their fame, bigger than any band on the planet. And then they face this challenge, one that's totally unique to their home country, a challenge that forced an unprecedented pause, but is now setting up an even more incredible return. Right, so here's the deal in South Korea, mandatory military service. It's a fundamental duty for every man, and even for global superstars. There was a huge debate about whether they should get an exemption, but in the end, they all chose to enlist, saying it was a duty they were proud to fulfill. And they handled this with the exact same strategic thinking they bring to their music. As you can see from this timeline, it was all carefully planned. It wasn't random. Jin, being the oldest, went first. The others followed in stages, with the last 2, Jimin and Jungkook, enlisting together. The entire plan was structured around one single goal: getting all 7 of them back together as a group in 2025.
So, the countdown is on. By the middle of 2025, when the last member is discharged, that promise of their return will finally be here. The pause will be over, and this is setting up what is, without a doubt, one of the most hyped-up comebacks the music world has seen in a very, very long time.
And you know, when they get back, they are not going to waste a second. The world isn't just expecting a new song, we're expecting a whole new era. Fans are ready for a new album, a gigantic world tour, and all the content that comes with it, like concert films and documentaries, making sure their return is felt absolutely everywhere.
So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? After hitting pause at the height of their power to serve their country, the stage is now set for their next chapter. They've already done things that rival the all-time greats, so the only thing left to wonder is, what's next? What seemingly impossible record will they decide to break when they all get back together? Now that is a story the entire world is waiting to watch.